Right, let's dive in. Today we're tackling something that, well, it feels like it's everywhere, doesn't it? Selfie culture. But we're going deeper than just, snapping a photo. We want to look at the whole picture, this constant online self-show, the hunt for likes.
The validation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we're asking what's driving this psychologically. And maybe the more surprising part, does history have any warnings for us about where this massive focus on self might lead?
That's the core question, really. Is this just a harmless trend, or is extreme selfie culture maybe a symptom of something wider, a kind of societal unease?
Unease, yeah.
Something that's hitting our own well-being, but also how we connect or maybe don't connect with others. We need to understand the pull of this digital mirror and, see if history offers any, let's say, cautionary tales about societies getting a bit too self-absorbed.
Okay, so let's unpack that. This idea that it's a sign of societal unease. That's pretty heavy. But the thinking is what started as maybe fun, a bit of tech novelty.
Right.
Has kind of mushroomed into something else, something with real effects on how we feel about ourselves, our place in the world. It's not just the picture anymore, is it? It's the endless performance.
It really is. That simple act, taking a selfie, it's become a key way we build our identity online, how we seek approval. And when that becomes the main way, amplified by platforms that basically built to hook into those needs, well, you're looking at a potentially big cultural shift, and not always for the better.
And one of the first places this seems to show up is narcissism. It's like our feeds become these endless digital mirrors, right? Reflecting back this perfect curated version of us.
Yeah, and feeding that desire for admiration. It's fascinating, actually, how building this ideal online self can reinforce those tendencies. I mean, even years ago, research was showing links between heavy social media use and narcissistic traits.
Right, I remember reading about that.
And now, with everything being so visual, Instagram, TikTok, you have to wonder if that effect is even stronger. Think about it, crafting the perfect shot, choosing the filter, waiting for the likes.
That anticipation.
Exactly. It can create this loop. You seek the validation, you get a little hit, it boosts that self-image, maybe inflates it a bit, and then you seek more.
It's that dopamine hit, isn't it? Every notification, a little reward. But it does make you ask, where's the line between, healthy self-confidence and something more problematic, like genuine narcissistic patterns?
That's the crucial distinction. Healthy self-esteem, ideally, comes from inside, from your achievements, your values, your sense of worth. Narcissism, though, leans heavily on what other people think. It needs that external fuel. And selfie culture, well, it's almost perfectly designed to provide that, isn't it? It trains us to look outwards for approval rather than building it internally.
And this hunt for the perfect image, it doesn't stop at our faces, does it? It gets into how we see our whole bodies. This idea of self-objectification, seeing yourself as a thing to be looked at, judged.
It's quite unsettling. The pressure to get that perfect selfie, the one that gets the likes, it can really distort how we see ourselves physically. You're constantly exposed to these images online, often edited, often unrealistic, and it sets these impossible beauty standards. This can feed into things like body dysmorphia, where people get obsessed with tiny, perceived flaws.
Flaws that probably no one else even notices.
Often, yes. And the act itself, taking selfie after selfie, checking them, choosing the best, encourages us to view our bodies as objects for evaluation. Fredrickson and Roberts talked about this years ago, self-objectification theory. It can lead to anxiety, shame, feeling disconnected from your own body's experiences.
It feels like a cycle. You see the ideals, you feel bad about yourself, you try harder to match the ideal in your next selfie, you post it, you crave the validation to feel okay.
Exactly. Which leads straight into this idea of validation addiction, that dopamine loop we mentioned.
It sounds almost like a drug, but digital.
In a way, the mechanism is similar. These platforms, with their unpredictable rewards, likes, comments, shares, they tap right into our brain's reward pathways, dopamine release. It's like a slot machine in your pocket.
Ooh.
And research on social media addiction draws strong parallels to other behavioral addictions, like gambling. You become reliant on that digital fix of approval, and when you don't get it...
You feel down, anxious, maybe.
Precisely. Real negative emotions. And this constant chasing of external validation can really undermine intrinsic motivation, too. Doing things just because you enjoy them or find them meaningful, not just for the ogram.
And all this performing, this curating. What does it do to our actual relationships, our ability to just be real with people.
Well, that's a major concern. It can seriously erode authenticity. If you're constantly performing, projecting this flawless image, it's hard to be vulnerable.
You can't really show the messy parts.
Exactly. And genuine connection needs that vulnerability. It needs honesty, sharing the real you, imperfections and all. When interactions are mostly about managing your image, they become superficial, transactional almost.
So you end up with lots of connections online, but maybe feeling quite alone.
That's the paradox, isn't it? We're hyperconnected digitally, yet studies suggest feelings of loneliness and isolation are actually increasing for some heady users.
How does that work?
Think about scrolling through endless highlight reels. Everyone's perfect vacation, perfect relationship, perfect meal. It breeds social comparison.
Yeah, definitely. Envy. Feeling like your life isn't good enough.
Right. And that classic FOMO, the fear of missing out. Research, like Premack's work, has shown a link. More time on social media correlated with feeling more socially isolated. Those hundreds of friends often don't translate into genuine intimacy or support when you really need it.
It builds a kind of wall, maybe, between the performance and real connection.
It certainly can, a barrier to depth.
Okay, now this is where we shift gears a bit and look backwards. The idea here is to draw parallels, potentially uncomfortable ones, between this intense self-focus now and other periods in history. Periods marked by, well, hedonism, selfishness, maybe even societal decline.
And it's important to clarify, this isn't about saying, oh, selfies mean society is collapsing tomorrow.
Right, not predicting doom.
No. It's about pattern recognition, seeing if intense self-absorption has cropped up before, and what happened then. Take the Roman Empire, for example.
The classic bread and circuses.
Exactly. The idea that providing basic sustenance and mass entertainment kept the population distracted, disengaged from civic duties, while the elite indulged in, frankly, incredible luxury and self-gratification.
So, pleasure over purpose.
In a way, yes. Traditional Roman virtues, duty, seriousness, service to the state seemed to erode. Historians like Gibbon argued this decline in civic virtue played a big role in Rome's eventual decay. You can see a faint echo, perhaps, in how chasing digital likes can become an end in itself, distracting from, well, bigger things.
Interesting. What about the Belle Epoque, that time before World War I in Europe? Sounds lovely, but...
It was a time of great art, innovation, relative peace, yes, but also intense individualism and aestheticism that sometimes valued beauty and personal sensation above all else.
Like, live beautifully was the main goal.
For some, absolutely. There was a focus on personal refinement, indulgence, art for art's sake. But it often existed alongside stark social inequalities, with the privileged somewhat detached from wider societal problems. That cult of the individual, while fostering creativity, also carried seeds of self-centeredness that perhaps weakened the collective fabric.
Detachment again. And then, probably the most extreme example, pre-revolutionary France, Versailles.
Oh, absolutely. The sheer, unimaginable luxury of the aristocracy at Versailles, completely insulated from the grinding poverty of most of France. That image is powerful.
Marie Antoinette, let them eat cake, whether she said it or not. It captures that feeling.
It captures the utter disconnect. Their world revolved around pleasure, etiquette, intrigue, totally divorced from the country's real needs. This profound self-interest, the refusal to address deep inequalities, bred massive resentment, and ultimately, revolution.
So looking across Rome, Belle Epoque, France, what's the common danger sign? What connects them?
I think two things really stand out. One is the erosion of empathy. When your world shrinks down to just your own needs, your own pleasures, your own image, it gets harder to see, let alone care about the needs of others.
You lose that connection.
Yes. And second, relatedly, is the weakening of social cohesion, those bonds that hold a community or society together. Self-centeredness frays those bonds. People stop trusting each other, stop working together for common goals. Shared purpose dissolves.
And the argument we're exploring today is that our current selfie culture, in its extremes, might be pushing us in that same direction, contributing to a modern erosion of those values.
That's the core thesis, yes.
Yeah.
That it's not just about individual psychology anymore, but potentially a systemic force subtly undermining things essential for a healthy society.
Okay, let's break that down. How might it be eroding empathy, for instance? You'd think seeing more people online might increase it.
You might think so, but the constant inward focus, how do I look? How many likes did I get? Can pull our attention away from others. Also, the digital screen itself can create distance. It's easier to objectify or ignore suffering when it's just pixels.
Less immediate. less real somehow.
And the competitive nature we talked about, striving for the best online self that doesn't always foster empathy. It can make us see others as rivals for attention rather than fellow humans. Now, research on this is mixed, admittedly, but the performative nature of much online interaction is a real concern for genuine empathetic connection.
Okay, what about superficiality? The idea that image trumps substance.
Selfie culture definitely seems to prioritize appearance. How things look often matters more than what they are. Achievements get boiled down to the photo op. Personal growth becomes a documented glow-up for online approval.
Right.
And the whole attention economy rewards quick, flashy, easily consumed content. Deep, nuanced thinking, complex discussions. They often get less traction. This can subtly devalue depth, intellectual curiosity, genuine connection over time.
That leads into the distortion of reality, too, doesn't it? Everyone presenting their best life.
Absolutely. This curated perfection creates a collective illusion. It makes normal life with its ups and downs feel inadequate by comparison. And this desire for appealing content, for things that pop visually or emotionally, can also fuel misinformation.
How so?
Well, fake news or misleading stories often spread because they're sensational or visually striking, not because they're true. When the lines between our performed online selves and reality are already blurry, it makes it harder to spot manipulation or outright falsehood circulating online. Trust gets eroded.
And consumerism feels baked into this whole thing. The perfect selfie needs the right stuff.
They're deeply intertwined, yes. Identity becomes almost like a brand you curate. And that brand needs constant updates, the latest clothes, the coolest travel spots, the right products. It drives consumption.
The influencer economy.
Exactly. Brands harness this perfectly blurring, authentic sharing with paid promotion. It risks turning the self into just another commodity valued for its market appeal rather than its intrinsic worth.
Which brings us to the last point. Civic engagement. If we're all so busy building our personal brands online, what happens to participating in the real world, in our communities?
That's a real worry. Does intense preoccupation with digital identity leave less time, less energy, less interest for engaging in civic affairs? Addressing local problems? Participating in democracy?
You see things like slacktivism, right? Clicking like on a cause instead of actually doing something.
It can feel like participation, but often lacks real impact. And even within movements, the focus on individual visibility or getting personal attention online can sometimes fragment collective action. If our main drive is self-promotion rather than shared goals, it can weaken our ability to tackle big societal challenges together.
Wow. Okay, so we've really gone through it. Taking this seemingly simple thing, the selfie, and tracing its potential ripples through our psychology, our relationships, even drawing parallels with these big historical shifts. The core argument is pretty stark.
It is. That this intense focus on the self, amplified by technology, mirrors some historical patterns linked to hedonism, selfishness, and maybe even a fraying of the social fabric.
And the potential consequences we've discussed, less empathy, more superficiality, a distorted view of reality, turning ourselves into products, and maybe pulling back from civic life? It's a lot.
It's definitely a lot to think about. And again, the point isn't to say all tech is bad, or you should never take a photo of yourself again.
Of course not.
It's a critique of the excesses, of a culture that can become overwhelmingly focused on the curated self, potentially at the expense of deeper values and connections.
So wrapping this up, what's the way forward? If this is a potential problem, how do we navigate it?
Well, maybe it starts with awareness. Promoting media literacy, understanding how these platforms work, how images are constructed, encouraging critical thinking about what we see online.
And maybe fostering value beyond the like count.
Exactly. Cultivating intrinsic self-worth. Finding validation from within, from real achievements, from genuine relationships. Re-emphasizing values like empathy, community, maybe even altruism. Developing healthier digital habits, being conscious of how and why we use these tools.
Choosing depth sometimes over just scrolling.
Yes. Making space for nuance, for real conversation. It's about finding a balance.
It definitely leaves you thinking. Maybe the final thought for everyone listening is to just take a moment and reflect on your own relationship with this digital self-presentation. How much time do you spend looking at the digital mirror versus looking through it out at the world and the people around you?
That's a great question to ponder. Moving beyond the reflection to engage with the shared human experience. That feels pretty vital right now.
Absolutely. Well, this has been incredibly thought-provoking. Thanks for unpacking all of that.
My pleasure. It's an important conversation to be having.